Welcome to Pivotal. This is the podcast where I talk to business owners about the journey that got them here. And we really slow down at those key decisions and moments that turned out to be pivotal in our current success. Here's the thing about those key decisions and moments. When you're in it, you actually don't know how it's going to work out. They're ultimate leaps of faith. You can do research, you can do pro-con lists, you can run things through some kind of algorithm. But at the end of the day, these decisions are about being in alignment and taking the ultimate faith in yourself and your vision. Now, ironically, I do the deepest dive into this mindset of a business owner with a finance expert. I love talking to financial people who also talk about mindset and the psychology of money. Math will always math. 2 plus 2 will always equal 4. But it's when that math is put in the hands of a human and our very complicated brains and our values, our judgments, our beliefs, how those all influence the decisions that we actually make that guide us towards the end. So I love this conversation. I love how mystical and magical we get into, knowing that her background is also very much, in systems and the reported world and math and finances. So Tara Downy is a true optimist in life. Her journey has had its ups and downs, from divorce to single motherhood, working 2 jobs, to building her career in a male-dominated industry, to staying true to her authentic self and starting her own business during the pandemic. Sound familiar? Tara Downy has always maintained a positive outlook and focus on the possibilities. And that is exactly what we discover and explore in her pivotal moments. Tara Downy, I feel like I am talking to myself in this conversation, not just because of our names, but just there are so many similarities between what we do. So I sped through the intro, but even just in our pre-chat before here, we found even more similarities and just synchronicities in our stories and what people can share. So let's start with who you are, where you are now, what is your business and what do you do?
Awesome. Well, I first have to say I am so excited, Tara, to be chatting with you because again, I just think we've got this just connection and so I'm really excited for the conversation. But as you mentioned, I was on the corporate side of financial services for almost 20 years. And then recently launched my own financial practice. So I now get to work with clients every single day. And I love that. It just lights me up. It's exactly where I should be. And I'm so excited for that.
So tell me more about what that feels like to feel, you said you're exactly where you're meant to be. Like, give me some specifics. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah. So I think when I was on the corporate side, even though I was in financial services, I always tried to relate the roles that I was in to how am I helping people?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it was a stretch depending on what my roles were. So you were like, through this, I'm helping people. And so I think the ability to be in a room with clients, listening to their stories, helping them through their financial situation, whether that be amazing and we're taking it to the next level, or maybe there are some things that have been on their mind and they're worried about. So like digging really in, like I get to do that now every single day. And so that's the part that I love, really partnering with clients.
Yeah. I love that it's such a subtle distinction between what it felt like to serve clients for a larger business and how you're able to create the relationship that you want to have with your clients. Because I think sometimes, when we hear the entrepreneurial dream, especially for people who worked in corporate and now they're doing their own thing, we think that it's, corporate was terrible and corporate was oppressive and corporate was terrible. But really it's just, no, there's something else that I feel like I am called to do. And I just want to figure out that thing. It's not necessarily a rejection to the world that we were in.
Exactly. And I think, so a little bit of my background, I started as a financial advisor when I was in my 20s. So I was this young woman, again, in a male-dominated industry, but it looked very different at that time. And I didn't see I didn't see me
Mhm. Okay.
in that environment. And so I think there was this spark that started back then and
Mhm.
throughout my corporate career that I had that inner, at some point, will I go back to that at some point? And so that was the piece that I think just stuck with me throughout my corporate
Yeah.
career. And I just thought at some point I would love to do that
Mhm.
again, but in a different time as
Mhm.
a different person.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So take me back to then when you were in your 20s. Like what
Mhm.
drew you to financial planning? Because that's, when you're 20, I feel like I was just learning how money works at that point. So like what was going through your mind? Like what were your expectations about the industry at that point?
Yeah, totally. So I think it came back to helping people for me. It really did. Like I just thought, wow, like what a role that this individual can play in families' lives. And I thought that was really amazing. Um and such a great, and it still is. So
Mhm.
I think that piece never left me. So I think that's what drew me initially to that particular role.
Mhm.
But again, I was a different person. It was a different time in my life. I had young children at the time. And so then my decision to go into corporate was related to a lot of those things in my life.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Let's because I think that there's so much to say about the decisions, especially like I this is where our stories differ. So I don't have children, so I've never had to factor children into my career or decision making, but it still has played a role. Especially, in my 20s and my 30s, when I was cute, young, and fertile, people kept telling me, "Oh, you just need to meet the right person, and you'll change your mind." So I entertained that idea while I was in my 20s and 30s. Hit my 40s, I'm like, yeah, still haven't met the guy who is going to make me change my mind.
Yeah.
Shocker, a woman knows her own mind. But during that period of, hey, all it takes is one person to change my mind around having kids, that was where working in a corporate with a steady job, like if this potentially comes into my life, can I, sustain a family like that, even though I didn't want to have children, I still felt the pressure to have a steady and stable income in case that came into my life. So how like being you had young children in your 20s,
Mhm.
how did that affect you who was actually figuring out how do I raise these babies and work at the same time? Yeah.
Yeah, it was one of those times where I think again your mind is all over the place with what is the right thing to do,
Yeah.
and you're sort of judging yourself along the way, like, is this the right move? Is that the right move? And you're right. I
And
think
but
for
but
me,
but there's the right move for you, and then there's the right move for the family, right? I
yeah.
think those are 2 different things. I didn't mean to interrupt. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that was where my lean to corporate at that time was I I I think I hold like obviously huge responsibility or a
Mhm.
feeling of responsibility over kids
Yeah.
and financial stuff and whatever. And so having that stability for me at that time really did outweigh, maybe the entrepreneurial spirit
Yeah. Yeah.
of doing my own thing.
Yeah.
And so I think that was the initial draw
Yeah.
to the corporate piece for me.
Absolutely, and it makes perfect sense. Even looking back, like we'll get further into the nudge,
Mhm.
what
Yeah.
that and how that nudge feels, and because the nudge it's always there. But to me, the nudge was patiently waiting in the background. Like it just
Mhm.
needed me to be ready to go all in on that stuff. And I think that there is something because the other thing too, like I worked in a corporate environment for a long time while the nudge got stronger and stronger and stronger. So then walk me through. So we've got the security, you go into finances, you got 3 young babies.
Mhm.
At what point did divorce happen? And
Yeah, so it was
yeah,
actually early in my corporate career
yeah,
when, divorce happened and I'm a single mom with 2 young kids trying to rebuild, my life,
yeah.
and even at that time, I worked my day job, my corporate day job, and I had a second job waitressing in the night, like,
Mhm.
it was one of those things where you just I did to make sure everything was working because at that time I was building my corporate career. So I'm building, and so financially everything wasn't flowing in at that
Mhm.
point. So it's like
Mhm.
you do, I kind of did what I had to do and
Yeah.
worked 2 jobs. Um, and I think at that time, my focus, of course, was my kids
Yeah.
and being a strong foundation for them, supporting them financially. And when I think about the work I do now with clients and sort of navigating the money
Mhm.
story,
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
we go through those ups and downs. Like
Me
I
too.
went through them. My financial confidence wavered. My journey was not super smooth and always pleasant, but I think it was really figuring out what was important to me,
Yeah.
what did I value most, and then how am I aligning my finances to those things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think one of the things that also I think stuck with me, and almost like you said, that quiet nudge in the background, was just that I felt really alone
Mm.
during that time.
Mhm.
I had a financial advisor, but I don't think we connected the way that, so I didn't feel I could be open about my situation and what was going on and really look at them as a partner.
Yeah.
And so then you navigate a lot of that stuff on your own.
Yeah.
And so I think that stuck with me in terms of we don't have to do this alone, or you shouldn't have to do this alone.
Yeah. Yeah. I love there are so many things that I want to unpack. First is that feeling of loneliness and isolation. There is something to because in finance, math is math, right? 2 plus 2 will always equal 4.
Yeah.
There's a solidness to finances that goes haywire when you add a human in it.
Yes.
Because then you've got the judgments, you've got beliefs, you have all kinds of things. And so if you're not aligned with the world that you want to be, that you want to create for yourself,
Yeah.
and you are just doing what you need to do to get through, that's very lonely and isolating. Even though you're surrounded by people who are like, well, I have this, I can show you, like we could put together a plan, I can help
Yeah.
you through this. You do actually need to go through that, maybe not alone, but on your own.
Yes.
Because it's not so much, it really is about the alignment and building a life for you that
Mhm.
then benefits others. I mean, there is that there to me, that's a huge mindset shift in making those decisions, ignoring what everyone else is telling you about what you should do. And I think, looking back in my 20s and 30s, not taking a chance on freelancing or listening to the nudge
Mhm.
was because I was listening to what other people were telling me of, well, at some point you're gonna get married and have kids. I'm like, I'm almost 50. It's not happening.
Exactly. That was
Um,
somebody else's life. Like,
but it's so powerful, especially when you're starting out. All you know is what you should do. All you know is what other people are telling you. You don't know what you want to do or who you're going to be, but there is that voice, right? There
yeah.
is that nudge. So to walk me through then, so we've established kind of the early phases, and I totally get needing security, needing just to figure things out. You got little babies, you have to care for them. Like their
Mhm.
needs are your needs. But then the babies become adults themselves. So how old are your kids now? They're in their 20s, right?
So they're in their 20s. Yeah. All
Yeah.
3 of them are in their 20s. So, yeah, it's a different world for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at what point, how is there a connection then between when you started listening to the nudge and deciding to go all in on your own business? How dependent were the babies on you at that point?
Mhm.
Is what I'm trying to ask.
Well, at
Yeah.
that point, it was, so I launched sort of in 2021, a little bit
Mhm.
before that, as I was getting everything, set up and ready to go. But yeah, my kids were older at that point in time. And so, gosh, you asked me this question, and now I'm double thinking, like, what was I actually going through at that time?
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
I think maybe there was a part of me that felt like now that they were a little more independent,
Yeah.
I could maybe start doing a little bit more dreaming
Yeah.
of what's next for me.
Yeah.
I do remember specifically thinking and reflecting on where I was in my corporate world, and if that is where I saw myself. So I was trying to visualize myself as like an older, at the end of my career.
Mhm.
And it actually scared me
Mhm.
because I just felt like my energy was meant for somewhere else.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like like I said, I loved and I valued and I'm so grateful for all of my experiences.
Mhm.
But at that point, I just felt like my energy was meant for something else.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where, and I think to your point, the nudge had started to get louder over the years. And it was like I was listening, but I wasn't listening. And then I don't know, it was just like, yes. I
Yeah.
think it just became so clear for me.
Yeah,
That
go ahead, yeah.
even though the like how the logistics, how that was all going to happen
Mm.
was not clear to me at that time. Like the thought of leaving, you know, a great salary and pension and bonus and all the things on paper, it's
Yeah.
like, what is going on? What am I thinking?
There's something to when the children are more independent, right? They're your active role as mom, all of the reasons why the corporate job made sense and
Mhm.
that overrode your personal that were louder than the nudge, that just disappears. Like your relationship with your kids change, your role of mom changes. There's something that happens when the roles that we use to define ourselves and make our decisions, there's something that happens when that role changes. For me, it was when I was restructured, when I was given my package and network television was like, your services are no longer needed.
Mhm.
It was just that complete blank canvas. And the nudge was like, I have been trying to talk to you for years. So now I'm taking over. But there's just,
Slaps you in the face. Like,
we're
you
doing
can't
it.
miss this one.
But it was just because, and I've told the story before, but I'll tell it again. So when I actually decided to leave network television in January of 2020. So in that point, it was 10 years at the Marilyn Dennis show. And I loved the Marilyn Dennis show, loved the team, loved working on that program. But 10 years is a long time to work on the same program, especially one that was so mom centric. At that point in my life, I'm like, this is not my world. There's something else that I'm meant to talk about, but I couldn't figure out what that was. And I even when I was still working in the network was interviewing for other jobs and talking to other programs and other opportunities, wasn't finding the thing. The nudge was like, nope, this isn't it, this isn't it, this isn't it, there's something else. So in January 2020, I decided, well, this is the year I'm going to leave. Like, this is 10 years is a good run, a nice even number. And I had made the plan. I knew all I needed was some seed money to get started. So I needed to save up as much as I possibly could between now and the end of that season. And I wanted to work with a career coach because I knew that I needed some help. What I wanted to do, I couldn't define it. I didn't know what it was, so I didn't know where to look for it. So those are my two New Year's resolutions for, again, January of 2020 were those two things. March 2020, of course, hit, everything turned sideways. And then suddenly I'm clinging to this job because, again, I need the security, right? It's just, I need steady money coming in. That we can talk a lot further about the psychology of steady money, but I need the steady money. This job that I wanted to leave like 2 months ago, this is now my lifeline. And so then a year later, January of 2021, when the company went through a major restructuring and I got my package, the package included a full year salary and then 3 months support with a career coach. The two
Wow.
things that I had asked for the year before just delivered to me. And I knew, just like it was like a head to toe, full body awareness that it's now or never.
Yeah.
The thing that I am meant to do, this is my chance to figure out what this thing is. And I did not know what it was.
But I love that so much. I
Yeah.
love that so much. It's
Yeah.
like things happen and they're just like,
Yeah.
now
It
do
was it was the
something with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a full blank canvas, like the awareness, the day that, if you've never been laid off, you don't actually quite know what the sequence is like. But it was just suddenly my calendar was wide open. And you would think that, my first panic moment would be like, how am I going to pay my bills? My first panic moment was, what am I going to make for lunch? because I had the whole afternoon to make something, to order something. Like I didn't have to just like inhale something quickly in between meetings, but it was just that awareness that I have a completely blank canvas. My day can be whatever I want it to be. So what do I want it to be? And
Yeah.
wanting is the hardest thing to define.
Yeah, totally. I remember feeling like it took me a while to get off that hamster wheel
Yeah.
of, to your
Mhm.
point, my schedule was built for me.
Yeah.
So your assistant would my assistant would just put meetings in and you would go to those meetings, and then when your schedule, your calendar is your own
Mhm.
and you have to really go, what do I want it to look like?
Mhm.
Like that took me some time
Mhm.
to actually figure out and to kind of get out of autopilot
Yes.
and into creation mode. Like, what am I like? I have this opportunity now, like create it. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you get started? Like what was the first step that you took in that space where you got this blank canvas?
I know, right? So I really started connecting with people, and that's what I realized, just making connections and talking to people and
Mhm.
sharing what I'm doing now.
Mhm.
That was for me the starting point of everything, which was great because, and I did some brand work in that time that I was, so I did some brand work because I'm thinking, okay, I've been working again on the corporate side, promoting brand that wasn't me, but
Yep.
promoting a company brand, but now it's me. And
Yeah.
so I'm kind of like, I knew that that wasn't necessarily my skill set. So
Yeah.
I did work with a brand consultant to kind of help me take what was in my head
Yes.
and put it out there and get it out there in a very authentic way to me. So then when I
Mhm.
did start talking to people, it felt like me.
Mhm. Oh,
Mhm.
and I love how you can really only figure that out by being in conversation. Like you need to put it into practice.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the work that I do with clients is, yeah, you've thought this through. Like what you want to create is inside your head. We just need to work through getting it out there into the world, because if it's not in the world, no one can engage with it. No one can connect with it. So it
Yeah.
doesn't become anything. It just stays inside your brain. So what were some of the for me too, coming out of the network space, it was really about redefining. So I had a specific role working in the Marilyn Dennis show. Now I'm figuring out, well, what is my new role? Because it's not just the service that I want to provide for clients, but it's I'm now founder and CEO of a business. So there's a whole lot of other things that are happening there. So in terms of the how of true financial being revealed to you, like what were some of the overwhelming, holy crap, I have to figure this out too. You mentioned branding, but what else was kind of coming at you?
Well, I think it was everything. I was like, holy crap, everything, because I led a team prior to that and had a marketing and communications team, a finance team, an administrative, like all the things, all the support around me. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, you're all those things.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I'm finance, I'm marketing, I'm so, on obviously a much smaller scale, but at the same time,
Still all the
very
things.
important and critical parts of the business. Now, I think my corporate background gave me some of the skills to know, like, I need to
Mhm.
do these things inside my business. So one of the things that I did was I did organize my time so that I had some working on the business time,
Mhm.
and then my in the business when I am the financial planner working with clients, that time. And so I need both,
Yeah.
and I need to make sure that I'm spending time in each. And
Yes.
so do I have that balance perfectly right yet? I don't know. Like, do you ever, like, so I think it's just one of those things that you do juggle.
Yeah.
But again, I think that was a big piece for me.
Yeah. And I think I'm relating hard to the trying to wear all the hats at the same time, because you feel like you're when you're serving in one space, you feel like you're ignoring the other spaces. So that was
Yeah.
actually a really great discipline for me to realize, was that all of these pieces are connected.
Mhm.
So when I'm working on the business, it's serving how I work in the business, and vice versa. Like you still need to be in the business. You need to be serving clients. Like I'm
Mhm.
still very active in the sales funnel. There's
Yeah.
very little that's automated because I'm learning so much
Yeah.
about what my skill set, what my offer actually is doing for people. And
Mhm.
that's, I just keep getting new ideas of, well, how I can deepen the service. How can I improve the service? How can I pivot? Like businesses are dealing with a very different economic environment today than they were when I started 4 years ago. Like everyone had serve money. Everyone had money to kick around to invest. No one has that right now. So, but then how do I pivot? Like, how do I serve, in the whole sales, marketing, media funnel? How can I then enhance and broaden? I think you do need to be in all the spaces, but then still looking ahead to, okay, well, when I'm more resourced, I can give this to someone, which then allows me to have more time. Because I think there is something to, though, in those spaces of just letting yourself be guided by
Mhm.
what feels right, which is something that you mentioned in the beginning.
So there was this, of course, nervousness, right? Because you're going, okay, I haven't done this before. I have this great stable thing over here, and I'm going to take this leap and I'm going to do something very unknown. So having that belief in yourself, like I just kept
Mhm.
thinking, if I put the same amount of energy and commitment and into my own business as what I'm doing over on the corporate side, like it's got to be great. It's got to be great. Like,
Well,
so,
yeah. Why though? Why? Where did that belief come from? Because it is easier to deliver the service for someone else, right? You're not
mhm,
having to wear all the hats. You can just be in the client space. So why is your own delivery of service, why is that better?
I think intuitively I knew that the financial space needs more women
Yeah.
financial professionals out there supporting people in their financial journeys. Like I just, the numbers are staggering. The percentages remain low. I think 15% in Canada, financial professionals are women. And like that is so sad to me. And
Hmm.
so I think part of it too was I know there's such a need out there.
Hmm.
And I know I can do really great things with clients because I'm also of a belief that um, looking at the whole person, that entire
Yeah.
individual in their financial journey is important. And so having
Mhm.
those conversations about values and about goals and dreaming, and along with the financial pieces that of course we're going to put in place is so important. And I think those are conversations that aren't happening enough out there.
Yeah.
And I knew they were conversations that I wanted to have with people.
Yeah.
And so I think staying rooted there is a need out there.
Mhm.
And I think I can really help people.
What I'm hearing is that it's not just having more women in this space, but also having more women serving in like the feminine space. So in terms of like masculine and feminine energies,
Yes.
it's not about evaluating people based on gender, but in the approach. So it's
Mhm.
not just being a woman in finance, but it's about being a woman in finance and approaching it from just the things that how women approach money
Yeah.
differently. The way that we approach money, the way that we value it, the way that we make decisions around it is different. So having a financial advisor who understands that it's more than just money in, money out. It's more than just compound interest. It's what this money means to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what you can create with that,
Yeah.
right? Really connecting to that. And so that was sort of the vision that I had. And as I was approaching it, like this felt so right to me. And
Mhm.
those conversations felt right to me. And I think the desire to help women really find and embrace their financial confidence,
Mhm.
because I remember all the times when mine wavered, and
Yeah.
I'm in the financial industry, but like, and so to help create a community where we really are supporting each other and helping each other feel confident in
Mhm.
our financial decisions.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we can have a whole other conversation around confidence in financial decisions, because I think too, when you move from delivering a service in a corporate space where
Mhm,
you're serving with a steady income,
mhm,
your life is just very, very different than when you're in the entrepreneur space
mhm,
and you're just making money decisions differently. A big thing for me, especially in these early years. So I have always prided myself on being good with money.
mhm.
I realized I was good at managing a steady paycheck. I was good at managing a consistent household budget, but moving into entrepreneurship and investing in the business and
Mhm.
then growing a business while carrying debt, that was, I mean, that's been a wild ride inside here for the last couple of years. So can you just, if you feel comfortable, just share some advice for anyone who is in this space, whether you're an entrepreneur or not? Canadians are carrying a lot of debt, and there's a
Mhm.
lot of financial uncertainty. So how can people carry that? How can people be in that space with confidence?
Yeah. Well, I think taking a step back and the work that I do at the very beginning and that I recommend all my clients do is really go deep on what your values are, what
Hmm.
your values are today, because our values change. What my values were at 20, very different than now. And, you go through a transition and now you're an entrepreneur, you
Hmm.
know, maybe your values, some of them might be the same, some of them might be different. And so to me, I think part of it is going through that exercise. And if building my business, creating my business is one of my, very important values and priorities for me, and you're aligning your money, your investment, whether that be through some, obviously you might have to
Hmm.
put an investment in that has an interest rate attached to that.
Yeah.
But 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 again, is it aligning with what's important to you?
Yeah. Hmm.
Or is it just that debt that you feel guilty about because it isn't something that's important to you? It isn't
Hmm.
something that aligns with you. And I think part of it is going through that thinking on your own
Hmm.
and determining, you know, is it again aligned? And I should feel great about that.
Yeah.
You don't feel great about the debt per se, but
Yeah.
feel great about those money moves that you're doing.
Absolutely. And I think we don't, I feel like in business spaces and in financial spaces, we don't actually give enough respect to values
Mhm.
and alignment. Just,
Yeah.
are these decisions that I'm making today, do
Mhm.
they do they feel right? Is the nudge happy with these decisions? The nudge is very happy. The nudge is coming to me all the time saying, "We're doing all the good things,
We're
Tara.
great, we're
We're
great.
great. You're doing fine."
Yeah, well, and if it's not, like, if you
Yeah.
go, "Okay, yes, I've made this investment in my business, but I'm not feeling amazing about maybe the amount of debt that I have." So then it's put together your aligned actions, which are, "I'm gonna pay that down faster." So that's gonna be one of my priorities
Yep.
when, I'm looking at my monthly inflows and outflows, and I'm going to put a little bit more to
Hmm.
that debt pay down and
Hmm.
have that plan rolling, because again, that's important to me and I'm taking an aligned action
Hmm.
towards it.
Hmm.
So that's again, you're then able to make really informed decisions on what
Yeah.
am I doing?
Yes.
Not, I don't really know what I'm doing and I'm feeling really crappy about everything.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Because guilt and shame around these past decisions,
Mhm.
that can be very, very destructive. So I think to me, the opposite of guilt and shame is values and alignment.
Yeah.
How do you strike the balance then between, because you're still from a very financial background,
Mhm.
how do you strike the balance between having, established systems? This is, the reported world. These are checks and balances. This is the plan, versus being in alignment, being in flow, following your intuition, because those are two very different
Mhm.
energies that work well together, but we don't always trust the more magical side of things. So how do you balance it?
Yeah, honestly. So I think I've had to lean a bit more on the, magical side of
Yeah.
things or the belief side of things, especially in this entrepreneurial, shift for me,
Hmm.
because and it was an uncomfortable place. It really
Yeah.
was an uncomfortable place to be, because for so many years I was in the very factual,
Mhm.
this is what's going to happen. And then this is what happens next. And this is what happens next.
Mhm.
And taking this leap and doing this whole shift, none of that was true. And it was
Yeah.
all, what is this going to look like? Um, so I think a few things for me. I think one, again, going back to, it's not sort of, um, I don't know how to word it, like aimless belief. Like it's not sort
Mhm.
of like just this belief without action, belief
Yeah.
without, it really was believing that this is where I need to be, and then
Mhm.
really putting all of my efforts there.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and sort of building from that side. And then I think the other thing for me, just as a general, in the financial world, is really going back to my financial roadmap.
Yeah.
Because I think, again, what are the impacts of my decisions on our longer term financial roadmap? And how do I
Mhm.
feel about that? And
Mhm.
so I think there's the combination of what are your decisions now, and what is that vision for the future,
Mhm.
and do the two align, or do I need to make some other shifts and moves? And
Mhm.
so I'm a huge proponent of clients having a financial, and I call it a financial roadmap, but really in the financial planning world, it's a financial plan. But I think there's so many people that maybe you've got an investment plan or you've done some things, but really looking at, what are my dreams in the future? Like, what do I actually want that to look like?
Yeah.
And then, do I have all my finances aligned for that future? Like, how do I live now and live for tomorrow too? And I think mapping that out really helps to give you that feeling of bit of comfort and security, or at least an
Mhm.
ability to say, maybe I don't love what it looks like, and here are some decisions that
Mm.
I need to make.
Mhm. I love that approach of calling it a roadmap and not a plan, because I think I'm a word nerd. So for me, the power and everything lies in the word choices that we have. A plan suggests if you follow these steps, you will get X result. But
Mhm.
life is not that simple.
It is not.
Life is not life that way. Whereas if it's a roadmap, and that's actually what I coach people in terms of media. Like even this interview, like we've gone back and forth. Well, we could talk about this, we could talk about that. I'm like, we're going to talk about whatever we talk about.
It's gonna go where it
It just goes where it goes. But that's also where like a roadmap is like, I am at this point. I want to
Mhm.
get to this point.
Yeah.
I'm going to follow down this path. And then if something happens, I can make this detour. And then if something happens, I can make this detour. And then knowing that it's a roadmap and not I follow this and then this and then this and then this happens, you get to then enjoy the journey.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's the other thing. I always say, like, I want you to love your money story.
Yeah.
Like, love every piece of it. And yes, we've had some things that maybe we didn't love as much,
Yeah.
but we learned something from it. But yeah, like,
Yes.
how do we love that? And so
Yeah.
I think it is, everyone has a unique journey. So that's where your roadmap is not going to look like my roadmap is not going to look like,
Mhm.
and so
Mhm.
on,
Mhm.
because we all have different dreams,
Yeah.
different ways of getting there. And I
Yeah.
think it being uniquely you is what is so important.
Yeah. And I think too, like it's, there are so many platitudes out there around like, learning from hardship, diamonds are made under pressure.
Mhm.
When you're in the hardship, like when things are hard, you're not learning in that moment,
Yeah.
right? Don't put pressure on yourself to like, because then you veer into toxic positivity, right? Then you're bypassing the
Right.
pain. The learnings come from looking in the rearview mirror, like
Yeah.
from conversations like this, like looking back and realizing, oh, that's why that happened. I'm now building on that thing that happened there. So I
Mhm.
think that's where a lot of our journey is again overlap is in figuring out what this new thing is. I'm not starting from scratch. I'm not creating stuff that I'm guessing on. I'm building on how I spent 20 years working for someone else. Because I think a lot of people, if you, especially if you're in the corporate space and you're like, there must be something else out there. I had a lot of judgment around my inability to take action and leave on my own. Like I was restructured, I was laid off. I didn't
Mhm.
make the choice. I've since gone back to the hiring to the director and said like, thank you for making the choice I couldn't make, because what's happened afterwards, because that requires a great deal of strength. But I've in recent years, I've looked back at that moment and just released a lot of judgments that I had around not being able to make that choice, because I needed to be in that discomfort for as long as I was in there. Because when it was time to, I was given this blank canvas, I had such a clear understanding. I may not have been able to write a business plan at that point, but I had such a clear understanding of what I wanted to do and what I didn't want to do. And that continues to guide me to this day. So I think if you're in that space of like, oh, this is, it's a paycheck, but I'm meant for something different.
Yeah.
Don't judge yourself for being in that space, and don't rush through it, because what you're experiencing is going to inform what happens down the line. Was that similar to how you felt being in the corporate space?
Yeah, it totally is. And I think where I was judging myself a little bit was for, again, not making this decision 10 years ago, because I'm loving, because of like where I am now and the things that I'm doing, and obviously just loving it. But at the same time, you look at it and go, but I needed all of that. I needed that part of, of my journey to get to where I am today.
Yeah. What would it change? Like if you started it 10 years ago, how would today be any different?
For me, I think just the opportunity to just help way more people. If I think about an additional 10 years of helping people, for me, it's just like, oh my gosh, I would love to have helped people. And I mean, I know I did in my corporate role, but in this space.
Yeah.
And so I think what that does for me, though, is I turn it to, that just lights a fire under me to say, so I'm going to make up for lost time. I'm like, let's go. Because when I started, I was going, like I was building from ground zero. And so it was like, okay, let's go. Let's try a bunch of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
and evolve it, and keep evolving it, and move from there.
So take me back then to when you were trying all the things. So how are you making decisions in that point? Because I've slowed down the decision making. I do more research now. I've even, with the new idea that I have for an offer, I've actually reached out to a couple of people asking them to be like test cases. Whereas 2-3 years ago, I'm like, nope, I've got an idea. I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to take it to social media and see who wants to pay for it. So how are you making decisions? Like what information were you taking in? And then when were you hitting go on those things when you were launching a bunch of things?
So I did use my network. So that was one of the, I think, values of building those relationships all those years. And so I had, people on the corporate side that I would just bounce ideas off of. Also other advisors in our industry who I built great relationships with. They were lovely and allowed me to pick their brain on, well, why did you structure it this way? And why did you, tell me how you started and what were some of the things? And so I really did try and lean on that a lot. And then it kind of just, things that felt right to me, I went with. Things that I was like, you know what, that just doesn't feel like me. I really tried to listen to my inner self as to what felt right, because my commitment to myself when I decided to launch my practice was, again, I was going to be true to who I was and to me and to how I was going to build this. And so I wanted to sort of let go of sort of the things I thought I should do and just go with what felt right to me.
That's such a great lesson, because especially in the beginning, you're drinking from the fire hose. You are because you need to take in all kinds of information. You do need to take in all kinds of learning, but at some point you need to step back and say, okay, thank you for the data. Now I need to distill this and take action on what feels right for me. Because I think a lot of business owners, especially ones that I work with on their messaging and their branding, there's a lot of judgment around like, well, I've done all this work and I've done all this research and the message still isn't landing. And I'm like, well, because we need to now actually create space for you. You followed someone's framework, you followed their advice, and now we're just going to fine tune it. It's the second draft. This is your version of the thing that
Yeah.
you started off with. And I think too, it's with your story, it's the never ending story. So I think as a business owner, as long as you are running these decisions, what feels right for me and this thing that I want to achieve,
Yeah.
that's your North Star. That's your guiding light. You will never go wrong following that, because that aligned way of serving is what prompted you to do this in the first place. It is easier to deliver this for someone else, but there's this larger purpose, right? This very specific way of how you want to show up, how you want to serve, how even the change you want to make in the finance space.
Yeah.
You can only do it on your terms. It doesn't exist in the larger scheme of things.
Yeah, for sure. And
Mhm.
I think it was the, ongoing commitment to
Yeah.
that. And I mean, it didn't go without like, "Oh my goodness, is this the right move?"
Yeah.
Like sometimes the inner doubts kind of creep in especially in the financial space, like, some of the words I was using, again, that feminine energy, I was bringing a lot of that in, which I was
Mhm.
so excited for because I had less of that on the corporate side
Yeah.
and more of the masculine energy, uh, but that was kind of a bit different,
Mhm.
even my branding was a bit different in terms of the colors and things. It
Mhm.
wasn't the blue and green but that wasn't me. So I went with what was me and
Mhm.
just really believed that it would connect with certain people and the
Yeah.
right people for me.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, I mean, I feel like I could nerd out for the next hour on those choices, because it's true. When you're creating something new, it's hard to then fall back on what is familiar. You do need to be in that space and be comfortable making decisions, not knowing if it's the right or the wrong decision to make. I
mhm,
actually did a master class where at the very beginning, I'm like, there's no right or wrong way to tell a story. There's just the aligned message.
yeah,
Is this in fact what you want to express? And are you expressing it in the best possible way? So,
mhm.
oh my goodness, I feel like I could talk to you all day about this
I
topic. But I think because when you started, you had so much goals to start with. So if anyone's watching this and they are in that corporate space, right? That they're in the safe, they're playing it safe, but they know that there's
Mhm.
something better. What should they have in place to know now is the time to give in to the nudge?
So um, I think I go back to that belief and that really listening to that inner nudge, like listening
Mhm.
to your intuition. If it's there and it keeps coming up
Yeah.
and you keep kind of like not listening and it keeps coming up, there's
Mhm.
a reason for that.
Yeah.
And so as scary as it might be, listen, like
Yeah.
really, really listen.
Let's wrap it up. If people want a more, aligned, value-based roadmap to their finances, where can people find you?
People can find me on my website. So that's tru-ii.com. I'm also on Instagram at Inspired by True and Facebook at Inspired by True.
Oh, amazing. Thank
Yeah.
you so much, Tara. I love your story. I love nerding out with you about all these things. And I wish you the best in all of your future imaginings.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.